So, thanks everyone for joining. My name's Nick. I'm the head of CRO at Vervaunt. We are an e-commerce consultancy and paid media agency based out of London. So, I'm going to be your host slash moderator for today's discussion, which is focused on GPT search and the future of product discoverability in e-com. And joining me today, I have Ben Jones from Osprey London and Axel Larsson from Depict. Guys, do you just mind doing a very quick intro? Tell us a little bit about you and your roles at where you're at, please.
Sure. Yes, I'm Ben Jones. I'm head of e-commerce and technology at Osprey London. Been at Osprey London for 8 years now, and now my primary responsibility is e-com revenue and profit and loss, but also I look after the technology for the whole business, whether that's in-store, marketplace, in the warehouse. So quite a broad remit in terms of technology, but also quite commercially focused as well, particularly through the website. We've been on a big journey over the past couple of years, basically overhauled every single business system. And kind of the pinnacle of that was last October. We actually transitioned from a Magento site and we went live with a Centra site mid-October last year. So almost coming up to a year now. And we're continuing to invest in that site. So yeah, on a bit of a journey.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'm Axel. I'm head of sales and customer success at Depict. We have a search and merch tool for top brands on Centra and Shopify. I've been with Depict for 4 years. I work closely with both the product team, but also on the commercial side, working closely with our lovely customers like Ben and Osprey London.
Excellent. Thanks, chaps. Should we get into it? Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So I'm going to kick off with a bit of a stat, as these things normally do. But Axel, I think you may have shared this actually in the doc beforehand. But according to BOF and McKinsey, they ran a bit of a study and wrote an article around search and merchandising and AI. And there's a nice stat in there. So they said that 69% of customers state that they go directly to a retailer's search bar when shopping online. However, of that 69%, 80% of them are generally dissatisfied with that search experience and tend to leave as a result. With a further 41% of those kind of citing that irrelevant results is kind of like the main barrier to shopping. So first question to you, Axel, is what do you see as the biggest technical failures contributing to that dissatisfaction of results?
Yeah, I think it almost sounds like a fake stat that 70% goes straight to the search. Like we planted this, but it is out there. We send out the study as well. But in general, like it makes sense that regardless of the exact number, right, that search is such a natural way of product discovery. Google and now ChatGPT has really taught us that like search is like the true way that you find product. It's natural to us. So when you land on a website, that you go straight to the search bar to try to find what you're looking for. So regardless of the exact number, I think it's true that like search is like a key part of how you find products. And I think the short answer to why so many just are dissatisfied and leave is because most search experiences are kind of trash. I mean, they are relatively limited. Like you have to know exactly which keyword that you're looking for. So if I search for trousers, but the brand actually calls it pants, or if I search for navy, but the brand actually calls it blue, unless the brand has spent tons of time in most cases adding synonyms, you just won't find what you're actually looking for. So there's like a mismatch between how you would normally search for items. Let's say if you go into a physical retail store and you ask for something and you get someone at the store finding items for you, to like how you have to use the search online. So you have to be very keyword specific and be almost robotic in what you search. And I think that mismatch between, that's not normal, that doesn't come natural to us. I think that's the general reason why like so many people abandon the search bar.
Yeah, they spend a little bit of time trying to figure out and unpick what how the search has been set up by the brand, and then give up and try somewhere else, right?
Exactly.
And I think we're just sort of going back to that stat of 69%. It triggers something in my head as like somebody who spends time doing customer research and trying to understand sort of what's going through a user's head when they're on the site. And to me, it feels like a bit of a signal of intent. You know, they're coming to the site sort of roughly knowing what, you know, they may have done their research on other platforms. They're coming to the site knowing what they're looking for. So Ben, I just wondered, like, are you seeing that play out, and are you seeing customers sort of coming to the site with that single-minded goal?
It's a really interesting. I'd love to know what percentage of that stat has sort of come from Amazon or something like that, where I feel like, have you ever used like the menu on Amazon? I mean, it's always search, isn't it? But
Yeah.
I think we're sort of at a premium price point, sort of bags and accessories. So it's definitely a sort of a considered purchase. And so we see, so looking at, we see about 20% of our visitors are using the search on our site. And sort of analysing what people are searching for, we do see a lot of people searching specifically for product ranges. So you're pretty confident that they've seen that product through another channel, or they're revisiting the site. But the main sort of search that we see is people looking for categories. So they are utilising it rather than the sort of the traditional menu navigation that you'll see. But we are actively trying to move away from being a purely transactional site, which is how we were historically. So we don't necessarily want people to just go straight to the product and make that purchase. We want them to experience a bit more and because we're investing a lot into sort of high level marketing and a lot of content as well. So we want people to experience quite a lot of the site. So we are seeing people do it, but there's a kind of a bit of a conflict because we don't want to just get people straight to the product. We want them to experience the brand quite a lot as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're building your digital flagship store, right? That's the phrase I've heard you use before when I've seen you speak at events. I love that. We're going to come back to digital experience a bit and maybe unpick that whole brand piece a little bit later. But before we do that, just want to look at the dreaded kind of 0 results page, as we know that's a big no-no in search, and obviously something that, you know, brands are trying to get around by spending the time building those synonym libraries and optimizing 0 results page with recommendations, etc. But from your point of view, Axel, what do you think that the impact is of those 0 results pages? You know, if somebody's coming to the site searching something like date night outfit, what impact does that have, and why do keyword-based systems kind of generally fail there?
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, obviously, no search result page is. I don't want to sound too dramatic, but it's catastrophic for a brand, right? Someone has actually taken the time to come into your brand and your site and actually engage with your site as well. So search for something in particular that they think you have at least. And if you don't show any results, then regardless if you have that particular item or what they're searching for or not, I think it's a big failure as a brand. I think again, the analogy with a retail store. If you come into a physical retail store and say like, hey, I'm looking for a date night outfit, a no search result page is like the equivalent of like the person in the store just saying, no, we don't have that, and then walking away. So obviously the person in the store would actually say like, okay, what are you thinking? Ask a clarifying question, or at the very least, just like suggest something else that's adjacent to what you're looking for. So I think like, it's a big failure if you land on a no search result page, regardless if you have there or not. You should try to push them, as Ben talked about, at least to an adjacent category that might capture that, or some other items that they might be interested in. Honestly, if someone is taking the time to come into your brand, I think just like a very easy fallback on just like, here are my popular products or new in, something like that is much better than nothing. Obviously, with like a smarter search, you can hopefully find much better adjacent products to what they're looking for. But in short, just like a new and unpopular or linking to a category is much better than nothing.
Yeah, for sure. Ben, are you guys doing anything around those pages?
Yeah, I mean, we try and inject a bit of playfulness into those sort of no results or 404s. We try and make it a little, give someone a bit of an Easter egg or something if
Nice,
you do get to
yeah.
that point.
Mm.
I think, oh yeah, I just remember spending hours like doing synonyms and stuff like that in the past, and it was always you've basically said when someone gets to 0 results that you've made a mistake, haven't you? At some point, either we have made a mistake in getting that person to the site, or that person's gone to the wrong place. I think it's such a waste of investment if you get to that point where there's 0 results, and it's there's damage to the relationship that you potentially spend a lot of money nurturing with the customers as well. You've got to, I mean, really, you should never have 0 results. There should be something you can offer the customer. And if you've got them to the site already, then there must be a reason why they're there. So yeah, it's terrible, basically. It should never happen. And that traditional synonym stuff, you're always just fixing problems that had already happened. You might stop them in the future, but that problem had already happened.
Yeah, I love the opportunity of using that as a branded experience as well. Like, it doesn't always have to be, shoving products in people's faces. It's actually quite a nice touch point for you to engage with them and sort of tell your story a bit in a traditionally sort of very transactional experience. I love that. So from a kind of, I guess, classic search point of view, Ben, you alluded to the fact that before this that there might still be a place for that traditional kind of keyword-based search. Got any examples of that?
I think it depends on the people, the demographic that you're appealing to as well. I think our customer base is it's not particularly old, but it's slightly older than quite a lot of sort of other brands, and you don't want to give something that people don't know how to use or don't know how to interact with. So, and I think, as I said, if you're trying to get people to a product quickly, I think there is still value there. I think we can talk about this in a bit, but that almost starting, and this is how I see it working for us, is that you start in a sort of a traditional tech sort of look for the customer, but then it starts to branch off into something a bit more complex and a bit more discovery-led, depending on what that customer's looking for. So yeah, I think there's opportunities to really sort of evolve where we're at from traditional search.
Yeah, so you're not completely throwing it out. You're sort of evolving beyond and using some of the capabilities that AI offers to build upon that existing experience.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice.
And can I just add to that, because I really agree. I think even being like a hype tech bro, right, and like, oh, you should use this new technology. I think like the traditional search really has a place. Like, if someone's looking for pants, you should just get fast and relevant results for pants. Like, I hate those AI stylist, super like, oh, find me an outfit that looks exactly like Hailey Bieber. It's amazing that you can do that, and that should be a part of a good search, but it can't be the only thing. You need to combine the traditional search with the ability to go deeper. So I think like what we're trying to do at Depict is like to bridge the gap between that really modern search experience with the traditional search experience. So you can start off with just a really traditional search query like pants, fast and relevant search results in a way that feels on brand. And then you get that question. So similar to how you engage with ChatGPT, right? So a clarifying question, what type of pants are you looking for? So this is almost like helpful. And then through that, you can go much, much deeper into, okay, I'm looking for pants for hiking under $200 in this particular size. You have the ability to go that deep, but you don't start there. And that's a way that you have a good search that you can capture both the traditional side, but also the modern side. So I agree with Dan on this point for sure.
I find it really interesting as well that we're getting to this point where, like, personally, if I'm shopping for, it depends what I'm shopping for, whether I want to be guided or not. So whether I'm searching for paint rollers at the moment, which I'm don't really want an AI agent to talk me through that one. But and also, I don't really personally, if I'm shopping for clothes and things like that, I want to use my own. I don't really want assistance in that sort of thing. I remember like Stitch Fix and was it Thread and things like that, that I don't think they're around anymore, but they tried to do like a human sort of agent to try and guide people to what they want. I think it's so important that you don't force people down a path they don't want to go. And it'll be really interesting to see how these develop as well, how nuanced and how they can pick up those different level of intent from the user as well, and then guide them down the right path.
Yeah. Okay, so we've touched on some of the issues. We'll get a little bit techie now for a bit, so bear with us. But I'm sure Axel will do a fantastic job of explaining these things. But I just want to look at, so with those issues that we've kind of raised, how on-site GPT search could maybe start to fix some of those problems. So if we use that date night outfit example, can you kind of walk us through exactly how a GPT kind of interprets that intent and delivers relevant products across categories versus that kind of traditional keyword matching search?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think a traditional search, obviously it looks for keywords. It's string based, it looks for keywords. That's the basis point. So if you start to search date night outfits, it look at date, it look at nights, it look at outfits. It doesn't do a good job of combining this and understanding that it's like one vibe for that. So that's number one problem. It starts to just look, okay, what do we have in terms of titles that matches date, night, or outfits, essentially, or potentially in some searches also the descriptions. This can work, but it requires so much time because the brand, they have to do so much tagging in order. Sure, you can tag your items with like suitable for date night, but to capture the long tail of like how your customers interact with your products, like a pair of pants, there are a million reasons why someone wants to buy those particular pants. So it's impossible to capture that manually. So that's when a GPT search come in, and it does in a really nice way. So without being too techy, just super simple. The LLMs are trained on natural language. So they understand that date night outfit belongs together. It's a certain style. They have that reference and can easily look through the brand's catalog and find items just looking at the image and combining that with the descriptions. The models are strong enough to figure out, okay, these would be suitable for date night outfit. And then over time, it gets better and better, of course, to see like, okay, given these types of queries, how are people interacting with them? Are they looking at more, I don't know, let's say skirts when it comes to date night outfits? Okay, then we'll push more towards that. So I think that's the general overview, at least, on the difference between like a GPT search and a more traditional one.
Yeah, nice. Yes, it's that context, but also you touched on something there that's probably quite relevant to some of the people watching around, like building in layers of efficiency. So you don't have to spend those times. You know, Ben alluded to remembering doing all of that stuff. You don't have to do all of that anymore in order for these LLMs to understand. You're building your PDP anyway. You've got your image gallery in there. You've got all your meta fields filled in. You've got your descriptions. It's something that you're doing regardless. You don't have to then do that layer of synonyms on top, all the keyword matching, etc.
Exactly. And I've been quite impressed. Some of the brands that we're working with, we're trying out this GPT search, they have quite limited, like, sure, they have images, they have descriptions, maybe some meta tags, but it's quite limited. But I've been impressed by like what the models, the LLMs manage to stitch together from quite limited type of information. And we do some enrichment on our side as well. That's, a key part of it. But it's impressive how little the brands have to do compared to how it used to be, at least, in order to still get super strong results.
That's the phrase right there, isn't it? How little brands have to do.
Just sit and wait for the money.
So just one more a little bit. You kind of touched on it there around these models learning. So how do these search platforms learn from the individual user behavior, and kind of what other benefits does that have to the brand?
Yeah, I think overall it tends to, you get much richer data with a GPT search compared to a traditional search. obviously, if your search results only relies around keywords like, okay, pants, tops, maybe black tops, there's limited amount of data for the brand to understand, like, okay, what is it that actually made this customer convert on this particular item? Whereas you have a more of a GPT base where it's been a bit of a back and forth, you can see that someone has looked for those materials that are suitable for hiking, etc. You get much deeper analytics and like why your customers are buying your particular products. So that's another like rich information that you would otherwise have to go and do like deep customer interviews for, which are also great, right? But this just gives another dimension of that. And then over time, just like the LLMs learn by seeing, okay, when someone this type of query, what is the follow-up? Where are they clicking? What is converting? What sort of follow-up prompts are they giving? So I think in a really strong way, it just improves over time, depending on how your customers interact on your site as well. But that data side is something that I'm super excited about, for like, you get almost like a deep dive on each single deeper query, like, okay, what was it that made this particular customer actually engage and buy this particular product? You never get that through like a collection page or a PDP. You can see which traffic source they're coming from, but not like, okay, what was the key deciding factor for converting?
Yeah, I'm like sitting here, my brain's kind of ticking through these things from a CRO point of view, thinking about, I'm trying to understand as much as I can about a user and what makes them tick and what they do and don't like. And I can see like surfacing all of that data and having that available just be like a gold mine. And I imagine it goes beyond site experience too, right? You could even use it to build the product roadmap and what comes next and what additional colors and fabrics and things like that you might bring in.
Yeah, I mean, already we use that sort of search data. We feed that into the product teams as well, especially for things where people can't find it, is really important.
Yeah,
that's
really
good.
If we had that more,
yeah, creating new collections, for example, new type of ads as well around that particular storytelling around that product. There's like capturing that long tail of like, okay, what is it that brings them to this particular bag from Osprey London? I think, there's a million things you can do when you have that data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. So we're talking AI, we're talking about removing manual processes, which is all lovely. However, there's probably a place for it still. So I just want to touch a little bit on visual merchandising. So Ben, from your point of view, how important is that visual merchandising element and curating like an experience? And how do you see the AI experience kind of feeding into that? Or do you?
Yeah, it's unbelievably important. And I think we want to absolutely govern what happens. Also, we feel like we need to absolutely govern what a customer is seeing in those sort of category pages or in sort of product blocks and content pages and things like that. And I haven't really thought that there was ever going to be an option for that, because we are looking for there's a lot of visual similarities, but then there's also a lot of non-data driven sort of rationale going on there as well. And I think, going back to that intent thing that Axel was just talking about, actually, with that data, that's kind of what we're using to drive how we're merchandising categories at the moment. So if we're able to actually surface those intent and then translate that into visual merchandising categories, then there might be a world where a lot more of it is automated. I think we would probably always want to control the first few sort of levels of product, but and specifically for key categories where there might be an external factor for why we're pushing certain products, and that factor might be a certain price point that we're trying to push, or just a certain story that we're trying to tell. At that point, it might not have any commercial sense or make any commercial sense whatsoever. So I'm really interested to see the power of this going ahead, because I thought I've never really seen historically a tool that can do what we need it to do.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I think like we're at the Depict side, we're coming, or a few years back, we really came from like the data AI side, just like, okay, we're gonna automate everything. The brand's not gonna have to do anything. But now, after the past few years working with some really amazing brands like Osprey London, you understand like that is the key thing that you have, like the branding. It doesn't go away, and I'm hoping that there's a future where these two already now that these two things come together. So you as a brand, you still keep that that control over the brand aspect. So you sort of set the guardrails and like the overall, you know, look and feel and the tone of voice, etc., that you want to have, and that's sort of like the frame. And then within that frame, you can let AI and data, you know, within those frameworks and within those guardrails operate and try to optimize as good as possible. I don't, it's not that like, oh, either you go full brand or full performance CRO. It's all the best brands are somewhere in between. Definitely. So yeah, we've also been on a trajectory there. So I'm on your team here as well.
Cool. So I think we kind of touched on the tech a little bit and the on-site experience, balancing the two. I think it'd be interesting, Ben, to kind of understand if you've seen anything that looks at the gap between what customers are expecting. So, you know, we're all using ChatGPT every day now. Like even, you know, we're getting into shopping experiences in the LLMs that we're using daily. And I feel like are you seeing any sort of expectation gap between people coming to the site and interacting with search or trying to find product versus what they're doing sort of off platform and elsewhere?
I think that expectation is increasing. I still don't think, as I talked about before, I think we're still more of a considered purchase. So customers aren't necessarily expecting full conversational sort of search on our site. And I think it's, once again, we're trying to push people more to discovery, and I think we're still on that sort of, we're still leaning towards intent, really, that we're satisfying, and we can definitely get better at discovery, particularly through our search experience. But yeah, I think at the moment our customers are not screaming out for it, but I also don't think we're doing the best job that we could be doing in terms of pushing beyond just that traditional search. I think we are missing an opportunity here to actually go beyond what our customers are asking for and integrating that sort of GPT experience into a much more sort of brand-led, less transactional sort of experience for our customers. So yeah, I think we need to get better, and I want to improve it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's that funny phase we're in where it's evolving so quickly. It's like trying to work out how it actually becomes part of the business in a robust way and not a gimmicky flash in the pan kind of thing.
Yeah, I really see it as well. I think for me, I see it having real value in sort of for gifting, which is a huge part of our business, especially moving into the last quarter. And really sort of giving people confidence to make those gifting purchases, or maybe even do all their gift shop in one really quick hit, and making it easy for people. So I think, and also I really see the value in pushing the sort of the search or GPT search into areas that you wouldn't normally expect. So whether that's deep into content pages or embedded into category pages as well. I think you can start thinking about other areas where you can expose people to it.
Yeah, I'm starting to see AI sort of helpers popping up on PDPs. I think the one that's on the top of my head, because I was looking at it the other day, is Toomey luggage. Like it's quite, you know, it's a fairly technical product, and they're talking about the features and things, and they're highlighting some of those commonly asked questions, and it's almost like a little support, but in context and not like as a broad overarching sort of tool.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. We're starting to explore that as well too. I think Perplexity does that well, that you can like use it to come and compare products. So like almost chat with your products is actually what you mentioned there, to understand like, okay, at Osprey London, okay, how does this compare to this product? What are the key differences? Okay, I'm looking for this. So almost like not just finding generally, okay, this is the product, but also going deeper. Okay, these are generally the products that I'm looking for. And then you can use that GPT search-like experience to sort of, okay, but how does this compare to this particular product or even this other brand? So I think that's interesting, and an avenue really where you can like push in other directions. And I think generally on your question, there's a clear mismatch right now between like how we're all using ChatGPT and get that magic search experience, but then you come into any e-commerce site and it's just like kind of meh. And I think regardless of the brand, like we have to bridge that gap. And it's regardless of the expectations today, I think the expectations are too low for some customers, but it's really coming because we're all using ChatGPT and get amazing experience. It feels so disappointing when you land on a nice curated brand and the search feels super disappointing, right? I think this will be a key thing why customers should come into brands directly, right? Instead of going to Daydream, instead of going to ChatGPT and finding products generally. The reason why they'll come into your brand site is because they get a nice curated branded experience, right? And that's, I think GPT search is a key thing for being able to provide that.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting point around, if that experience is so good in an external LLM, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or whatever it is, like, are they going to get to the point where everyone's optimized their listings? They're getting, people are just using the LLM, jumping straight into checkout from there and bypassing all of that amazing work that you're doing as a brand to try and tell your story. Like, how's that going to work? Like, Ben, you're obviously, you touched on it earlier, building this brand storytelling piece. What if nobody ever sees it because it just jumps straight from ChatGPT into your checkout?
Yeah, it's scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
What we're doing this for. No, I think I would be amazed if we ever move into that world. But anyway, who knows? I mean, look, who knows what's going to happen with Shopify and what's going on there? I haven't heard anything more about that recently. But we're trying to say, we're not Shopify, so we don't have a Shopify checkout. So we have an area that we can hopefully inject a bit of storytelling into. So we're actually spending a bit of time on our checkout and doing things that aren't necessarily sort of traditional in your checkout, or adding some color and just trying to make it a bit more interesting. And I think there will always be, is it similar story to like physical retail? People are always going to want to, like, shopping for our products should be an enjoyable experience. It shouldn't just be a transaction. There should be some joy that we can give through a traditional shopping experience. But yeah, you have to cater for how people want to shop. As I think I said it before, people shop differently for the same products, don't they? They consider some things like a leisure activity, and some things they're just consumable that they have to do. So I think it's about catering and still investing in that brand, because I think people will still want it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you touched on it there a little bit around like different people shopping for different things, but also, broadly speaking, generationally, you might see Gen Z might be more willing to engage with their sort of full GPT style shopping experience and be happy to be guided and, interact with that. But older demographics that maybe are more typically your customer, Ben, like they might prefer a more traditional approach and want to spend that time consuming the brand and learning about the product on their own. Like, do you see, are you doing anything now to differentiate the experience between an older and a younger sort of audience, or from different sources or anything like that?
Yeah, so we're not doing, and it's something I've always wanted to do in terms of recognizing the customer and then either changing content or the products that they're showing. But at the moment, we're actually focusing on identifying the traffic source. So whether it's sort of a high intent campaign or higher up the funnel. And we're currently focusing on, so we're launching in a couple of weeks, a new PDP that's quite modular. So we can move either brand storytelling blocks or sort of product rec blocks to different areas of the site or different areas of the page, depending on that traffic. But it's quite, you will be testing a hypothesis and then seeing what the effect of that is. It's not dynamic in terms of looking at the intent of that customer or trying to make a more sort of nuanced interpretation of that customer. So that I find interesting if we could get way more complex and be much more dynamic in that, because at the moment we're trying to do stuff, but we're working in quite a static way.
Mm-hmm. You've got to take those first steps, and it makes sense to look at traffic source, because typically that intent will be different. You know what they've seen beforehand, so you kind of can take a bit of a guess at, you know, what they're interested in, what might have piqued their interest from that particular ad campaign or something, and then tailor the experience to them. So it sounds like you're on the right path. Axel, something that we talked about before was kind of this opportunity to potentially start creating dynamic categories that adapt depending on what the user's kind of searching for and what they've, you know, if they're looking for that date night outfit and you start to query that a bit more, creating dynamic collection pages could be quite interesting. What I'm interested in is how do you do that and balance that with brand consistency? And that kind of talks a little bit to what Ben's doing around, you know, starting to think about personalized experiences. Like, how do you keep the brand there?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's something that we think about a lot internally at Depict, though, like finding that right balance. Because I said before, and like the brand experience is ultra critical. It is like the key reason why these brands exist, beyond just having really strong products, of course. So we don't take that lightly. I think it's right now it's a trade-off that you have to do. So I think where we try to err on the side of caution. So really, with the GPT search that we have, you as a brand get to upload all your brand guidelines, etc., beforehand. So that sets the framework within which the GPT search will give answers. We also let the customers decide which pages should we index to train the data in order to know which type of answers it should give. So really, we hope to start from brand. The brand sets the framework and like the guardrails, like this is the look and feel, and this is the type of answers and tone of voice that we want. And then again, within that, we sort of we can let the GPT search or the collections move a bit more freely, depending on which type of customer it is, how they're interacting with the products. So it's a key focus of us of trying to find that right balance. It's a constant work, and it's different from brand to brand as well, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. So I think we're all kind of aware that, you know, the e-commerce typical funnel that you think about, you know, homepage, category, product, like that's been vanishing and not really ever been a thing. I don't think, like it's never been quite as linear as that. It's not how people shop, but I feel like this accelerates the need for that exploratory discovery to be present across the site. So just thinking about that, Ben, you talked about the launch of the new site last year, which, by the way, I can't believe that's been a year. I remember I went to the Centra, you know, dinner with you and saw the anyway. But what do you think that means for general kind of site architecture and how customers go about finding products?
Yeah, I mean, we're generally seeing a lot more traffic landing directly on products, and that has to not be the end. If the person doesn't find what they're looking for, that has to just be part, as you can say. It can't be the end. You can't bounce from that page. And I think it's just being a lot less fixed in what a category page or product page or home page means. It should be a genuine sort of journey, or you should be able to journey between those different areas super easily, and just keep that flow and keep people moving around until they sort of land on exactly what they want. Because people are going to be landing at any different point of that journey, and you just got to keep that going.
Yeah, I can only agree. I think that's like all the good brands already today focus a lot on, like, regardless of how the customer come in or where they're at, they don't force them in a single journey. Like, okay, you go from the collection page to the PDP and then to the checkout. It's a bit more, up, down, right, left, back and forth. And just as a brand, you really have to focus on, like, every single touch point needs to be relevant in terms of, like, you can't just have products or not just content. It needs to be a mix of both, right? Again, the analogy with, like, a good physical fashion store, for example, obviously you're not forcing the customer to walk in a certain line. Some stores do that, but, like, generally the more high-end good fashion stores don't. And it's always that mix between, like, okay, information about the products, seeing the products, getting a mannequin or like a branded experience somewhere, just replicating that online. So combining, for example, the PLP, don't think of it as just a list of your products, right? Incorporate content in there, inspire your shoppers to that, incorporate information about your branding. Maybe that, free shipping is a key selling point. Let's say that, like, incorporate that in the collection page as well, rather than saving it for the checkout. I think, just being more flexible there is, I think, the general guidelines I have for brands.
Yeah, I'm excited to see, like, how UI design kind of keeps up with that, and how the platforms, such as Centra and Shopify, like, how they allow brands to the flexibility to be able to curate those journeys that start in different places. Like, it's something that we're playing around with a little bit. We're testing various things on different brands, where if you do land from a certain traffic source on a PDP, like, how do we stop you bouncing back to Google Shopping and keep you within the experience and expose you to different things? But there's always that, how do you squeeze so much on an oblong that big? It's like, how much space can we take up and also not distract those customers who are there just to buy that product? It's an interesting space. I think experimentation will play a big role in how these sites develop as well, which for me is very exciting.
No, it's fun. It's like, you're building the shopping experience and, like, the brand experience. It's not like you do it or you do, like, it's an ongoing work, obviously. I mean,
yeah. So I'm just thinking, like, let's fast forward into the future, 2 or 3 years ahead. Like, do you think that that traditional search box, with the menu at the top, the little search icon, do you see those disappearing completely and these journeys becoming more dynamic? Or do you think that there'll always be kind of segments and people who want that traditional feel and approach?
I think there's always going to be traditional customers, always. But everything will keep evolving and getting more, or those journeys will keep getting more complex, and the different devices that we're using and the different ways that you're, discovering products. I think it's hard to know, really, isn't it, what it's going to be like in 3 years' time. I think it's going to be unrecognizable to what it is now. But there's still going to be that core of customers that still have money to spend that you need to cater for. I don't see it's going to disappear anytime soon, that search box.
It feels like it's the overlap of people who still leave their house and go to a brick and mortar store to shop when they could just do it online. There's going to be that overlap over time, isn't there? But we'll see maybe a shift. I don't know. Yeah, like you say, it's hard to know at this point. Actually,
I mean, it's hard to feel like you always underestimate what can happen in the long term, like, say, 3 to 5 years, and exaggerate what's going to happen in the next year, especially when you talk about AI. But I think one, like, for me personally, when OpenAI released, like, voice mode to ChatGPT, I was super skeptical, right? I was like, never going to use it. And here I am, like talking to my phone and actually using it. So I think, I mean, yeah, it's evolving for sure. I don't think the sites will be completely unrecognizable in 3 years' time, but I think it definitely, the product discovery experience, even though the search will still be the basis, I think it has evolved into more conversational. It's going to be more around that back and forth with the brand that you get in an in-store so well. I think that will be replicated. I'm not sure exactly the UI of it. We'll see that over time.
Yeah, I'm interested. Right, let's come back to the present. So I think we talked about a lot of different use cases for how this could be implemented, and there's lots of evolving tech in this space, and I think it's important though to maybe just think about how you can measure the impact of that GPT search could have. So obviously in my world, everybody thinks that the only thing I look at is conversion rate, but there's plenty of metrics around that, and it'd just be interesting to see like how are you going to measure that search to conversion, time to purchase, product discovery depth? Like what KPIs are important to you, and what are you kind of surfacing, Axel, for you?
Yeah, no, I think the starting point, like the key KPI, is obviously conversion rate. I think that's the starting point with this. I think there are other important metrics and KPIs, but I think that's the start. So like, okay, conversion rate, and also I think a key component that we're thinking about as well together with our brands is like how much time are you spending on your search? And ideally, that should go down quite drastically with a GPT search. You don't have to spend that time tagging your products or adding synonyms. So I think those two is more or less what we lead with and like try to impact. And we've seen really strong results so far. But beyond, like there's as I sort of alluded to before, like there's a wealth of data that you can make use of here. So like, okay, depending on what they start searching for, what other type of categories and how large proportion of the catalog are they seeing and engaging with, depending on what type of queries they're making, how can you involve sort of like to bring that average order value up as well by surfacing. I really like GPT search in that regard. It's less pushy as well. It's like, okay, you found this, may I suggest these shoes that goes well with this, or this care kit, etc. It's such a nicer way of like getting that average order value up compared to like in the checkout, like, oh, don't miss this or add this. So those metrics matters as well. And then last point is getting that understanding of like, how are your customers interacting with your product? What is it that brought them in? What made them stay on a particular page? What made them convert, hopefully, or what made them disappear? I think the search gives more because you get that natural language, right? How people interact with the brand. So I think that's something we hope to bring to the fore as well.
Ben, from the brand's point of view, there, like, agree with, is Axel bang on? Is he?
Yeah, I think it is a tricky one, isn't it? Because you always sort of look at engagement stats and like how long people are spending on pages, how many products they viewed, and all that sort of thing. But really, those metrics only make sense when you sort of take it back a bit and you look at the reason why people are searching. Because sometimes you just want people to get in and make that purchase really quickly.
Yeah.
I think what Axel was saying about average order value and items per order and things like that, I think that's really interesting. Once people start trusting these sort of, I think people are already trusting them, but I think as that trust increases and people genuinely believe in those recommendations and things like that, I think that's going to be super powerful in terms of taking out revenue. I think I've never seen massive, those sort of product recommendation blocks and things like that, I've never sort of seen historically never seen huge sort of uplifts from them. It's always things like trying to get people over free delivery and stuff that just make them search around those. But actually suggesting things that have relevance or potentially, thinking about things that they've searched on other sites and stuff like that could all potentially feed into things as well. So, I think it's getting people onto things, however we measure that they wouldn't have bought already.
Love it.
You're Mr. CRO, Nick. Like, what do you think about that in terms of measuring this in a good way?
Yeah, I think so. I always, whenever I'm designing an experiment or thinking about, you know, improving an experience, the metric that I measure is very dependent on the change that we're making. So, you know, if we're making a change on the homepage, I'm using transactions and conversion rate as a guardrail, but really I'm looking at, okay, did they get further down the funnel, etc. So I think it will depend on how and what gets implemented and even where. You know, if we're talking about a mini experience as part of enriching a PDP, then I'm probably thinking about add to bag. But if I'm thinking global site search, then you probably are looking at some of the things that you brought up, Axel, in terms of, you know, how much time you're spending on there, what does bounce rate look like after search, all of those kind of things. But ultimately, it all comes down to pounds and pence, doesn't it? You know, if it equals more money in the bank for you at the end of the day, then that's the goal for everybody. But I think when you're evaluating these things, I don't know what your approach is at Depict in terms of, you know, running A/B tests, you know, with traditional search versus GPT search. Like, that would be a really interesting thing to run and see, like, what metrics actually move as a result of that, and kind of look at everything. Big test for you to run there.
For sure.
Yeah.
We ran a few, and it's very positive. I'll share it afterwards. No, but strong, I think, in terms of like the most basic query or basic KPI around like conversion rates through search. So far in all tests we've done, GPT search tend to perform much better.
Nice. There's your plug. Cool. Okay, we're almost out of time. One more question for you both. So nice broad ending for you. So one piece of advice for the guys watching, whether you're exploring or implementing AI search, what's your kind of key takeaway after the chat today? Ben, I'll start with you.
Yeah, for me, it's so important that you consider your audience when you're thinking about the implementation. As Axel said, what did you call yourself as a tech pro? It's very easy to get excited about this sort of stuff, and you just want to. I can genuinely see the value it can bring to the site as long as it's implemented in an appropriate way for us and for our customer. But yeah, I'm really excited about where this could potentially lead in terms of the experience of the customer. And that's the ultimate goal, really, for us at the moment.
Yeah, and I think for me, if I take the role as a tech pro here, but I think generally speaking, I think AI solutions in e-commerce have, maybe generally speaking, fallen a bit short. I think there's been a lot of talk, a lot of hype, and then like in terms of actual business value for proper brands, it's been more limited. There are exceptions, of course, but generally speaking, search being such a key part of like how your customers are finding products, it will remain a key part of how your customers are finding products. I'm super excited about like the real business impact that a GPT search can have. So I'd say, obviously, you don't have to go super far, but like start looking into it at least. I think this is definitely where the market is going. It's not just empty words and like hype. There is real business value in implementing something like this. So like, go have a look. It doesn't have to be Depict. Like, find someone else if you don't want to. But like, start exploring this. Search is key. You all know it from your brands that conversion rate through search is generally much higher than anything else. If you can just capture a few more conversion rates, I mean, yeah, it's quite easy to do a strong ROI case on it.
Nice. Amazing. Thank you so much for your time, guys. I think that's really insightful. Loads for people to go away and think about. I'm excited to see those case studies from the tests that you've run. But yeah, it's been great. Thanks very much.